Hello, everybody. Happy Monday. We are here in the Pro Singer Success Collective to do a little Monday motivation as we do live. And I love to see you guys live on Mondays. Today, we are talking about perfectionism. This is a very fun topic for me because you are looking at a number one recovered perfectionist right here. So when I talk about perfectionism, you guys believe me, I know what I'm talking about because I am a recovered perfectionist myself when it comes to not just my singing and my performing, but everything. Because if nobody's said this to you before, how we do one thing is usually how we do everything. And that's the freaking truth. So we are talking about perfectionism today. And we're going to illuminate what perfectionism really is, the unintended effects of perfectionism that it has on your voice, and how to annihilate it, and really how to know if perfectionism is affecting your voice. So if you're watching this, who here would say that you're a perfectionist when it comes to your voice and your singing? Comment in the chat, whether you're watching this live or whether you're not, because I'm going to answer you with a couple things in the chat with some directions and things too. So who here who's watching would say that you're a perfectionist when it comes to your singing and your voice? And I'm wondering, how does that show up? How does that perfectionism show up? Comment back to me. Does it show up where maybe you're really hard on yourself? It's never good enough. You do recordings and you listen back over and over and over again, and you will always find something wrong with it. It's never perfect. It's never right. Does it show up in the form of you feel like you're forever getting ready to get ready, meaning, oh, I'm not going to go to that audition. I'm not ready yet. It's not perfect yet. Or I'm not ready to go into the studio. I'm not ready for this person, this producer, this agent, this manager to hear my songs because they're not perfect yet. Like, do you notice that it takes you forever to make certain steps because things aren't perfect and you don't feel ready? You know, maybe you don't think you're a perfectionist, but I have a question. Are you really hard on yourself when it comes to your voice and your singing? Is it never good enough? See, so these are all just forms of perfectionism showing up. And look, you got to understand how to see these things about yourself just with compassion. It's just data. It's not drama. Okay. I tell that to the singers in my program all the time, that when we're looking at these things within ourselves, we want to do it with just a gentle detachment. Like we're just looking at data about things that we do, ways we engage with ourselves, things that happen, beliefs, accountability, whatever it may be. We just want to look at what's going on, and there is no make wrong here. If you're listening to this and you're watching and you're saying, oh, wow, like, I really am a perfectionist and it really sucks and it really holds me back. And like, okay, like there's no make wrong. Okay. We're just looking at data. So even if you think maybe you're not a perfectionist, but you really recognize yourself in a lot of these things I'm saying, this is just the insidious ways that perfectionism shows up. There's just various forms of that. And so why it's really essential for a singer to understand if you're engaging with perfectionist tendencies in your voice, in your technique, in your performances, is because that perfectionism is actually a huge block and a huge saboteur to you being able to actualize the full potential of your instrument, for you to be able to actualize the full efficiency of your technique and of the gift that you were given. And the reason that that's the case is because perfectionism lives in the body, just like any other state of being. How we feel about things, we take into our body. And so if you're a perfectionist, see, perfectionism, you guys, is not actually the problem. Perfectionism is your ego mind's solution to the real problem. And so for singers, what the real problem usually is is that you are afraid that you are not good enough, that you don't sound good enough, that perhaps your voice isn't interesting enough, or when you do the high notes, or when you do, it's all of these things that you worry about, okay? That you're scared of, if you can't get them right, that you will fail. You will botch the audition. Nobody will listen to your recording. You won't make it as a singer. You'll have to do something else you hate for the rest of your life, right? Perfectionism is your mind's way of being able to mitigate failure. I'm going to say that again. Perfectionism is your mind's way of being able to prevent you from failing at that audition, that high note, that recording session, because it convinces you that if you are perfect, you will not fail. If you are just perfect, you will succeed. It's a lie that your mind, your ego mind is telling you, which is that if you are perfect, you will not lose what you have, or you will get what you want. But it is a lie. Number one, because what is perfect anyway? You have your idea of what you think is perfect, but everybody sitting in that audience or on that audition panel has a completely different idea of what that is, and you can never be everything to all of them. But see, the thing is, you think you can, because your mind has convinced you that if you can just be perfect, that you won't fail. And so you're trying to do something that is literally impossible. You are literally setting yourself and your voice and your performances up to fail when you engage and believe that lie, that if you are just perfect, you will succeed, you will not fail, you'll get what you want, you won't lose what you have. And the reason that is so dangerous, believing that lie, is because it causes us to do things that cut us off even more from that audience. So not only are you now trying to do something that's impossible, which is be what you think everybody is, everybody's idea of perfect you think is the same as yours. So if you just show up that way, then they're all going to want to hire you or listen to your record or whatever it is. But you can't be everything to everyone, but you've convinced yourself that you can. And in doing that, you are now setting yourself up to fail by setting an impossible standard, an outcome that you can never reach. And so you will always feel not good enough. You will always feel like a failure. You will always feel like you are 10 steps behind, because you're trying to meet an outcome that literally doesn't exist. But see, the thing is, it creates a negative feedback loop, because now you feel even more less than, because you're trying to do something that doesn't exist, which now convinces you that you just need to be more perfect. If you can just do it more perfectly. And so it just creates this feedback loop. And here's why that's so dangerous for singers. Because your body's your instrument, not this, your whole body. And we as humans, we physicalize our thoughts and our feelings. And so if we are trying to meet an impossible standard, an impossible outcome, when we will always feel less than, and we take that into the body, we take that into how, we react physically. When you are feeling less than, you're going to do one of two things. You're either going to shrink away and you're going to contract away and you're going to not want to be seen and you're going to back off. In which case, that doesn't work on stage. That doesn't work to help you get across your energy and your impact and your voice that doesn't work for that. And it could also cause you to go in the other direction, which is to want to fight. Meaning it's like you're going to prove that you can do it. So you're not going to fail. You're going to get that note and it's going to be perfect. And so now you're in make, force, do, push, manipulate mode, which causes your body to do all those things because you don't want to fail. So you're going to do your best to be perfect, even more perfect. And now you're creating tension, you're blocking energy, you're not able to fully embody and access the technique that you otherwise would. So you're not efficient. So then the high notes don't show up the way you want. So then you don't use your breath the way you otherwise would, because your body is sabotaging it, because it's reacting to all this perfectionism going on inside your head. And so now you're messing up your technique, you're messing up your breath. And now ego mind is convincing you, pardon me, I'm even further away from that standard. So I'm never going to get there. I got to be even more perfect, but I'm not ready yet. And so now you're not taking the opportunities that you otherwise would. You're not putting yourself out there in the ways you otherwise would. You're not going for those things. You're not investing in what you need to. You're not going to those auditions. You might, maybe you live in a tiny town, and if you could just get to New York or Nashville, or be able to do more, but you're not perfect yet. So then you don't do it. But that yet becomes another month, another year, another 3 years, another 5 years, and now you're nowhere on your goals for your singing or your career. And so this is why it is so insidious, and how it's really one of the big saboteurs of your voice and your singing career at large. Even if you're not trying to do this professionally, but you're somebody who is a really dedicated, serious, avocational singer, same thing. So we work so hard with our singers who are in our intensive training to really nip this in the bud and start to learn how to reframe perfectionism. Because once you understand that it's just a protective mechanism, it's just a way that your mind, it's a tool that your mind is latched onto to try to, because it thinks if it does that, then you won't fail. So once you really understand that, then you can start to engage in a different way with the self-talk that's going on in your mind. So, like, show of hands, those of you who are watching live right now, and even if you're watching the replay in the chat, I want to know, type into the chat, how often you're singing something, or maybe there's an opportunity for your singing that you want to get to. Maybe you're in your practice, you're doing your technique practice or something. How often do you find that you're in your head and your head is telling you something like, you're never going to get this. This is never good enough. This is not what it needs to be. Like all the not good enough stuff. Like, how many of you notice that your mind goes to that place of like, no, it has to be this way. It has to be so ready and so right and so perfect. And so you end up kind of beating yourself up around that. How many of you deal with that? Tell me in the chat. Or how many of you know it's good, and you're good, but you're so terrified of all the competition out there that you're still not really putting yourself out there as much as you otherwise would, because it's not perfect. It's not really ready. And so you're forever getting ready to get ready to get ready to get ready. And you've lost a ton of time because you've convinced yourself, right? And so here's how that works though in the psychology. Now you have a really great excuse for why you're not putting yourself out there. And you guys, it makes so much sense in the moment. Like in the moment in your mind, it makes so much sense. Of course, I should wait. You know what I mean? But really what it's doing is it's taking you out of those experiences that you need in order to know what to up level and how to move forward. So when we're talking about perfectionism, there's some ways in which I love to be able to give our singers who work in our intensive training some just simple hacks, simple tools to shift the perfectionist thinking so that it works for you instead of against you. Because it takes, and like I said at the beginning of the live, I am like a number one recovering perfectionist here. So I really understand this, guys. I really do. And it is a process of undoing. You don't just snap your fingers, but there are certain things that you can do immediately to help you. So if you notice that you are a perfectionist, we're going to now see if we can shift this and use this perfectionism in ways that serve you instead of ways that sabotage you. So one of the things I say to my singers all the time is, can you allow yourself, like if you're going to be perfect at something, right? Like, so that's the habit. Okay, great. So if you're going to be perfect at something, if that's where your mind is going, then I'm going to ask you to be perfectly imperfect. I want you to be perfect at being imperfect. I'm going to walk into my technique practice today. I'm going to do lip trills, and I'm giving myself permission to be perfectly imperfect. I'm going to go to that audition, and I am giving myself permission to be perfectly imperfect. I'm going to go to that recording session today, and I'm giving myself permission to be perfectly imperfect. Do you guys feel how that like automatically just like, it's like it hits the release valve. And now all of a sudden you're in a different state. You're in a state of, I want to say, compassion with yourself. You're not holding on so tightly, like it's got to be perfect or else I'm going to lose what I have. I'm not going to get what I want. I'm going to fail, right? Permission to be perfectly imperfect. Ask yourself at the beginning of every day, how do I get to be perfectly imperfect today? What do I have on the docket? I'm looking at my schedule. I've got rehearsals. I've got coaching sessions. I've got a performance tonight. How can I walk into that rehearsal and give myself permission to be perfectly imperfect? Well, I'm going to just see if I can let myself be curious, let myself explore and experiment, and know that my entire success or failure does not ride on this one rehearsal, right? Because the perfectionism would convince you otherwise. So it's being able to reframe and retrain your mind and give it something else to grab onto, to be able to use your perfectionism for good instead of evil. Give yourself permission to be perfectly imperfect. Because I'm not going to sugarcoat it for you guys. This cycle of perfectionism, if you stay in it, it is a killer. Because once you're in it, it decks your confidence and it makes the fear of failing even worse. Like, as I just spoke about, it makes it harder for you to sing well because your body's just reacting to that need to force to be perfect so that you don't fail. And that does not live well for the technique that you have or the impact that you need to tap into in yourself, in your energy, to be able to create that impact for the audience. And so it makes it harder for you to do that, harder for you to make that impact, harder for you to sing well. So you feel even more insecure, more inadequate, which just makes the perfectionism even worse. And then you go into that place of like overdoing. Like, Dwayne, I see you in the chat. You're saying like, I think I'm overdoing. Yeah, you probably are. And again, there's no make wrong here. We're just kind of seeing what is. And so it's a horrible, horrible negative feedback loop to be in. And so we have a really specific and methodical way of being able to shift this and get our singers out of perfectionism and fear into that place of freedom and trust. Because that's the opposite of the perfectionism. The perfectionism is there because inherently you don't trust. You think it needs to be perfect. And it's like you're beating yourself into that place because that's the way your mind has convinced you that you need to be in order to succeed. And it leaves zero room for trust in your instrument, in your technique, to be able to show up and make the kind of impact that it otherwise could and tap into that potential of your voice. So do not spend one more day in this loop of perfectionism. Get help. Whether it's with me and working with us in our intensive training or somewhere else, just get on it. Because the longer that you wait to deal with the mindset that's creating this perfectionism, the worse that it will get. And it'll take you out, or you'll take yourself out because it's affecting your ability to succeed. And so you'll quit because you don't want to constantly feel like a failure trying to meet this impossible standard that you've set that you will never meet. Because it sucks to constantly feel less than. And you don't want to feel that. And this is why talented singers quit. This is why. And so either way, not dealing with this perfectionism, it lands you in the same place. Not singing to your potential, not living your passion, not living your purpose successfully as a singer. And I don't want that for you. And so if the effects of perfectionism are sidelining you right now and you see yourself in everything I'm talking about and you're done with this merry-go-round, if you refuse to go another day any further down this rabbit hole of not being ready, not good enough, perfection and fear, if you feel overwhelmed by everything that I just said, and you're like, I don't even know how I would begin to fix this, and you don't know how you would do that on your own, that's what I'm here for. This is what I'm really, really good at, and my team is really, really good at, which is guiding you through a proven step-by-step practice to address mindset and skill set, get your head screwed on right, transform the thinking, and then integrate it with the best vocal technique practices out there from 300 years of the last, years of vocal pedagogy and practice, and setting you up with that rock solid combination and that foundation from which you can now build your career however high you want to go. So instead of trying to figure it all out on your own, I invite you to book a call with me. Let's get this sorted. I'm putting the link in the chat here, and it's also going to be in the post copy and the video description copy if you're watching on YouTube or Facebook. But I don't want you guys to continue to blame yourself and suffer, blame your talent because you're not getting where you want to go. There are things you don't know. And sometimes it takes somebody who's outside of you to be able to mirror that back and help you shift it in the most powerful way so that you access the potential of your voice and of your gifts to be able to take it as far as you want to go. So that's our live for today, perfectionism. Get on my calendar. We'll have a little discovery call. We'll talk about what's going on with the perfectionism, talk about how it's affecting you, talk about what's going on in your voice, your singing career, the technique issues, the career issues. And I'll share with you the ways that we get our singers from A to Z. And if you'd like our help to be able to do that for yourself, then we can talk about that. And if not, that's okay too. But bottom line is this: perfectionism will take you down. And you got to understand how it's showing up, why it's showing up, where it's showing up. And if you'd like some help to shift it and learn how to sing in a way where you're not even worried about that fear of failure anymore because you trust your instrument, you know what's going to come out no matter what. And you've got the mindset to be able to withstand all of the ups and downs. That's what we're here to give you. So don't overthink it. Get on my call calendar and have an amazing day, guys. Mwah, mwah. Bye, everybody.